You guys were the first to get a glimpse of that, so I appreciate that applause. We're so excited about that project. And so excited to be here today. Thank you so much to the Colorado Health Foundation for inviting us, me and my storytellers, to tell our stories of resilience and what it means to be living successfully with a mental health condition. So I'd like to start off with a question. So have you ever thought about how our lives and our relationships and our world even might be different if we stopped being so afraid of stigma? What if instead of hiding what we've gone through, we instead looked at all the struggle we've been through, all the pain, and found a way to turn that pain into power or even purpose? And so what I'm going to share with you today is my story of the pain and struggle I went through as someone living with bipolar disorder, and how I turned it into something that could create change. So, has anyone here ever found themselves in police handcuffs? Raise your hand. A couple brave souls raising their hands. It's not something we want to openly admit, but I was in police handcuffs 8 years ago. And if you would have been with me on that evening, you would have seen the look of fear and worry and concern on my mother-in-law's face as she walked in the door to help with our 18-month-old son. You would have seen a very different version of me because I was in the middle of a manic episode. So I had these thoughts and ideas racing through my mind so fast, I couldn't latch on to anything. So the words coming out were not making any sense at all. And I had this outrageous amount of energy, but I had barely slept all week. If you would have been with us that night, you also would have seen my husband, Ben, looking calm and collected, maybe on the outside, but on the inside, I knew that he was probably a little bit disappointed and even maybe scared about what was going to happen. He had been through this with me before, so he knew by the signs I was exhibiting that he was going to have to call 911. And so he did. He called 911, and next thing I knew, police officers were walking into our bedroom where I was sitting on top of the bed, so excited that I had an audience all of a sudden. I couldn't wait to tell them the news. But they were perfect strangers, you know? They were police officers, but I was still so excited. And they started asking me questions about my mental health, my bipolar 1 diagnosis, and whether I was going to take the medication. And I told them, no, are you kidding me? I know what's best for me. I'm not taking those meds. And they told me in that moment that they had to take me to the hospital. I remember the officer standing in front of me, one standing behind me as I was placed in those handcuffs, the feeling of cold metal against my skin, the sound of them being tightened, and the weight of them pulling my arms down. I was led outside our bedroom, down the hall, past my son's room, where he was sleeping. And I said in my altered state of mind, wait, we're not going to wake him up? He loves police officers. Come on, we got to wake him up and introduce you guys. This is great. You're in our house. They didn't listen. I was placed in the cop car that was waiting at the edge of our driveway to escort me to the emergency room. The doctors and nurses who saw me knew right away that I was in the grips of mania, but as usual in our system, we had to wait for a bed to open up. So that night I was handcuffed to the triage bed in the ER as we waited, and in the morning a bed was located. I was taken again via cop car to the psychiatric hospital, where I proceeded to walk the hallways. I was in this frantic state of mind, you know, the mania has catapulted into psychosis, and every time I walked past the nurse's station, they had this potted plant, and I would grab a flower every time I mutilated that plant. I'm walking through the halls, pulling the petals off the plant, saying, it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a boy, until finally the staff had to hold me down and administer antipsychotics via injection. They had to bring me down from the mania. So I went back to my room, I slept hard for a day, And when I woke up, I started back on my treatment plan. And at the end of the week, it was time for the commitment hearing. Because I had been involuntarily hospitalized in Virginia, we had to hold a hearing to determine, is she well enough to go home, or does she need to stay longer? And so I'm taken again in handcuffs from this hospital to a government building, and my dad and my husband are there to meet me. And we're sitting there waiting in this room, and I'm still in the handcuffs, and talking about my progress over the week. And I was ready to go home, but they had to hold this hearing. So we're sitting there waiting, and my dad, sitting right across from me, pulls his cell phone out of his pocket, and he said, "Jen, I want you to promise me you're never going to go off your medication again. You're not just going to have one baby to take care of, but two. You're pregnant, and you need to take care of yourself so that you can be there for your kids." And he took a photo of me in handcuffs. And I wish I could say I have that photo today. I don't know where it ended up, but it's ingrained in my memory, and I've kept that promise. So I was released from the hospital. I get home, and in the weeks that followed, I had these emotions just crashing over me. There was shame and embarrassment and humiliation, but worst of all, there was isolation, because I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about this. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go to a play date with my little toddler saying, "You thought your first trimester was hard, I was in handcuffs." It's not like something you're going to bring up. So I kept it all inside, and I struggled. And I didn't know at that time, but it wouldn't be long before I would be sharing my story publicly, and I would be encouraging other people to do the same. So my mental illness emerged actually 5 years prior to that episode I just described. I had been working a job that I loved. I was a recruiter in downtown DC, making 6 figures at the top of my game, had married my college sweetheart, and we were building a house. Life seemed like it couldn't be more perfect. But then all of a sudden, everything came crashing down. I had a week where I didn't sleep. I was very stressed at my job. I was working late every night, and my husband had been out of town that week on business. So he gets home on Friday and knows immediately that there is something wrong with my wife, but he didn't know what, because I had no history of mental health issues. So he tried to calm me down that weekend, but you can't calm a person down who's going through a manic episode. They need medication, they need treatment. So he found that out by the end of the weekend when he had to call 911. And that was my first time in the hospital. I got out of the hospital and saw my first psychiatrist, who took my whole history and said, "You know what? It was all because you didn't sleep. De-stress, take a week off work, and you'll be fine." But I wasn't fine, because 2 weeks later it happened again, and I was hospitalized on Christmas Day in 2005. Coming out of that second time, we knew right away that this was serious. We needed to figure this out, and I was thrown into this world I knew nothing about. I saw psychiatrist after psychiatrist. I saw therapists. I had mood charting. I had medications. I had side effects, and it was extremely overwhelming. I tried to go back to work, and I could no longer function under the regular pressures of the job. So I made the difficult decision to resign. And in doing that, I spiraled into a severe depression that lasted about a year. I, again, felt that isolation crashing around me. I had no one to talk to, and I just wanted to be normal. I didn't want to be going through this. And so I built this wall of protection around myself, and I didn't talk about it. Looking back now on that time in my life, what was happening to me was stigma. Stigma, I was afraid of talking about it. Stigma makes us afraid to talk about our depression and anxiety because we fear that people will call us weak. Stigma is saying you're at the dentist when you really had a therapy appointment. Stigma is what causes us to internalize these struggles we go through because we fear that we're going to be treated differently or looked down upon or discriminated upon. But what I found through the work that I'm doing now is that stigma lies to us. And that slide advanced all by itself. So basically, what happened then was I ended up getting well. I got through that horrible year. At the end of that year, it was 2006, I call my deep, dark year. Cried every day, slept every day. I wanted to sleep through that whole year. I had a med change and had suicidal thoughts, and thankfully recognized that I needed to tell someone, told my husband, told my doctor, and I got on a different path. And luckily then the next med was the med that worked for me, the one I still take today. So I got through that horrible year. I never imagined that when I would go to have my children, I would find myself handcuffed and hospitalized against my will, but that ended up being my reality. So, for those of you keeping track, that was 4 hospitalizations in 5 years. And when I was able to look back on that whole period of my life, those 5 years, I realized that I didn't just go through all that hell for nothing. I said to myself, find a way to turn that pain into purpose. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no idea when it would happen, but I just knew that I wanted to write my own brave ending, as one of my favorite writers and speakers, Brené Brown, says. So, in trying to make sense of everything I had gone through, I found something that would change the course of my life, and it was something as simple as stories. I would look to the internet to find people who were blogging about their stories. And these writers were writing so openly and honestly about what they had gone through that they inspired me. And so in 2011, I wrote the first post on a blog that I titled Bipolar Mom Life. And what I wrote about was managing bipolar disorder, raising my kids, and just life in general. And it was very therapeutic. And when I started the blog, I wanted to be open with my true identity from the start. But I had asked my husband, my parents, a few close friends, even my psychiatrist, what do you think? Should I do this? I really want to just be open and use my real name. And they all said, don't risk it. There's too much judgment out there. People will treat you differently. They'll look at you differently. Don't. So I wrote anonymously and safely for 1.5 years as just bipolar mom. Until one day an editor from the parenting website What to Expect found my writing, that book when every woman gets when she's having a baby. They said, we want you to write for us. And I said, great, what do you want me to write about? And they said, being a mom who has bipolar disorder. I said, great, that's what I know. And in that moment of being recognized for writing about something that not a lot of people were writing about at the time, I made the decision to stop hiding. I said, ready to say, screw you to stigma. I don't care. And I want to make a difference. And if my story can help just one person, it will all be worth it, worth the risk of being open. And so it's at that moment that when we're ready to put our names and faces on our stories, we cut stigma out of the picture. We take the power away from stigma. If we look back on history, at any movement that's worked to end discrimination, you find true people telling their true stories with their real names. You see these figures. So I felt like it was time. It was at the same time that the song Brave by Sarah Bareilles hit the radio, and I fell in love with it. So I just played it on repeat, and the one part of the song that hit me the hardest was this, the lyric that said, your history of silence won't do you any good. Did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? And so I felt so brave. I tweeted to Sarah Bareilles, and I said, this is how big my brave is. And I included a link to the first time I wrote openly with my real name. And she retweeted it, and I think my neighbors down the street could hear me screaming. I was so excited. So that was kind of the start of it. At that point, what to expect folks took one of my posts, one of my very first posts openly, and they put it on the homepage of AOL. AOL had owned that property. So that was not my title. They titled it. But it got a lot of clicks. What landed Mom in the psych ward? So people in my community who didn't know my story reached out to me. People in my life, my family members who didn't know the whole story because I wasn't open, reached out. And they said, thank you for being so open. Thank you for telling your story. And then in the same breath, they would turn around and tell me their story. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, there's something to this. There's something here. And so this is where I came up with an idea to try to prove how stigma lies to us. So I met a woman in 2013 who ended up becoming my co-founder, and she shared my passion of mental health awareness and getting our stories out there. And I told her, I said, I have this idea. I want to launch a project that will become a platform for people to share their true personal stories live on stage in front of a live audience through creative expression. And I want to do this, and I need help. And she said, I want to help you. And so we launched it on Kickstarter. And it was just a concept. It was just an idea. And we put it out there and said, we need this money to raise the funds to rent the theater and to do the marketing. And we raised over $10,000 in 31 days because people believed in this. We sold out the theater after we had casted the show. We put out the call for storytellers, met 14 incredible people, and then put on the show, sold it out, covered in all the major newspapers and TV networks in our area. And people said, all right, what's next? You know, we want you to keep going. And so we became a nonprofit organization that same year in 2014 and began our vision of expanding across the country. And to date, This Is My Brave has held 45 unique shows in cities across the United States, and we've had a couple done in Australia as well, with over 650 people who have shared their stories on our stages. So it just goes to show that there needs, thank you, there needs to be an outlet. There needs to be an outlet. And we see the same thing happen at all of our shows. I had some press coverage in there. We were at front page of the Washington Post 2 summers ago, and we hit Oprah Magazine 2 summers ago. This was a 4-page feature article that they teased on the cover, I'm not okay and that's okay. They came to the show, not Oprah, she sent her editor, but, and they did this 4-page article, The Healing and Revealing, and then they shared it online with the title, The Powerful Way These People Are Coming Out About Mental Illness. So that was really neat for us, and that really helped launch us to go to many more cities. But the same thing happens at all of our shows, and that's that connection that the audience feels with the storyteller on stage, because when you see one person being vulnerable and telling you about their darkest moments, then you feel the courage to then open up in return. And so, for example, the first show in 2014, I walked out of the lobby, I'm hugging my friends and family, there's a lot of tears in the audience, in the lobby, people are connecting. This one woman said, I drove all the way from Philadelphia to see your show here in DC. She said, I found your blog in my darkest moments, and your writing saved my life. And when I heard that, we hugged. I mean, I'm still in touch with her today. She now is about to have her second baby. These people, there's a connection. When we put these stories out there, there are these little life rafts that when someone's struggling and they're searching YouTube or searching online and they find a story of someone they connect with, they feel that sense of hope. And this woman is Kim from Canada, who was one of the original bloggers who inspired me to share my story. So really what this all comes to, I'd like to kind of wrap up with this, that recovery is not a straight line. So my last episode happened, well, the last one I described in this talk happened when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2010. But I had a recent episode last fall. My co-founder, Anne-Marie, tragically passed away from a heart attack at the age of 59. And when she passed, I went through a manic episode and had to go to the hospital. And it was very hard. But the thing that keeps me going are the people that I've met through my work, and I am very blessed to have a strong support system around me. And I will mention, too, that when I did get sick that time, my kids saw me go through a manic episode very briefly before my support system kicked in, and my husband called my best friend and said, I need you to grab the kids. She came and grabbed them, and my in-laws came and helped take me to the hospital. Very different than going in handcuffs, I'll tell you that. So recovery is not a straight line. You're gonna have ups and downs, and that's the thing. What keeps me going is knowing that this work we're doing is very important and that we are helping to save and change lives. And so we keep it going because our vision is that one day we'll live in a world where we don't have to call it brave for talking openly about mental illness. We'll just call it talking. So thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for talking with us this morning.
Yes.
We were talking yesterday a lot about the power of storytelling, and just really interested in you sharing with us kind of why you think there is this experience that happens between the audience and the storyteller.
I mean, someone once described it as magic, who was in our Philadelphia show, one of the storytellers. I just feel like it's, like I described, it's this connection. I'm hopeful that my story resonated with each of you in the audience in some way, whether it be that connection of, you know, going through something as a family, or just, you know, deciding to be open and share a story. I feel like it's just this mutual vulnerability. It's when one person is vulnerable, others feel an invitation almost to be vulnerable as well, and that's how we make these deep connections.
So we were talking a little bit about Brené Brown and her description of vulnerability and what it means for folks to be vulnerable and for people to listen. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of her work for so many years. Back, you know, she did her TED Talk, her big TED Talk, and she's done several, but one of them she said, you know, she had been watching the conference over the past couple days, and then it was finally her time to get up and speak, and she said, you know, everyone gets up on stage and they're talking about these vulnerable moments of when they had a failure, or when they, you know, had some issue in their life that they had to tackle. And she said we could call this the failure conference. And it's when you can be true and talk about what enabled you to get to where you are. I think that really, as she said, vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. And she put it to the audience, and she said, how many of you, you know, when you saw those speakers up on stage, thought they were weak? No one raised their hand, because, you know, we have this untrue picture of what weakness truly is. I mean, I don't know.
Strength, right?
Yeah,
it is about strength and getting up to share your story with folks. So over the last 3 days, we've had a lot of different folks sharing their stories with us with a variety of perspectives. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was struck by, I am from a family of storytellers. And so I have been listening a lot over my life and really come to understand the connection that we can all feel from storytelling, but that as we listen, we all usually listen with our lens, whatever lens we're bringing. And so what we truly hear sometimes is not that intended message of whoever is sharing their story. And so I'm interested in since we've heard from so many different folks sharing stories, what advice do you have for us about how to truly listen?
That is an excellent question. I think that what I've learned over the years about listening is that, and I'm not an expert by any means, but I think it's just listening with intention to just listen, to not judge, and to not offer advice. I think that's what I struggled with for a long time, and I'm getting better at, just taking it in, hearing what they have to say, truly hearing what they have to say without offering a Band-Aid or well, have you tried this? You know, because that might not be relevant to their journey, you know? So just really hearing them out, and then maybe saying, how can I help? You know, can make a world of a difference, I think.
So you've talked a lot about your 2 kids, and I am the mother of a 3-year-old, and I am still figuring out what in the world that means and how it influences my life. And everybody talked about the terrible 2s, but the terrible 3s are a thing, y'all. It is a thing. So I'm really interested in, as your viewpoint as a parent, kind of how that impacted you as you thought about sharing your story.
Yes, and I shared with you last night how when I first was trying to make the decision of going public right away with my blog when I launched it, my mom said, what do you think the parents at your kids' preschool will think? What if they don't want their kids to play at your house because they know you have bipolar disorder? And, and my dad said, why do you have to be public? Why can't you just write anonymously? And I just wanted to be real and true to myself. Like, this is a part of my life. I think of bipolar disorder every day. I take my medicine every day. I think of my self-care, not as often as I should, but most days. And I think it's important that one other thing she said was, how can you make that decision for your kids, that you're going to be open about it and you're not even giving them the chance to weigh in on that? Because at the time they were 1 and 3. My kids are now 7 and 9, about to turn 8 and 10. And having gone through that episode as a family, I'm very lucky that I have a very strong support system around me. And my children, it was traumatic for them to see their mom not well. And we are very fortunate to have the resources to be able to have them in therapy. My daughter went through 5 months of therapy, and my son is now in his 2nd month. And because their trauma surfaced after the fact, and it's so healthy for them. Like now, and my kids have been around it since I started this work. So, but I think that they're very proud of what I do, and they are proud, I think, of their own mental health, the fact that they're learning so much in therapy. And I think it's important to show that mom and dad can get sick sometimes, and our mental health can suffer sometimes. And I think that it's okay for them to know that mommy has to maybe go to the hospital for a little bit, and she's going to get good care, and she's going to come home, and she'll be back to being mommy. And that's how it is. And I think it just is changing the generation, and the way that generation looks at mental health, I think, is going to be completely different than our generation, how we've grown through it and how we're hoping to really change it. I think we're starting younger, and I think it's good.
So speaking of generations, so yesterday we met right after I was coming out of the podcast booth, and
Yes.
I was a bit emotional. And one of the questions that was framed to me was around kind of the next generation and our youth, and this notion of them being brave. And you just ended your talk with this notion of us being brave. Talk to us a little bit more about being brave, but really trying to change that to just talking and making it something that we do every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that bravery is, doing something you might be afraid to do, right? So I think that there might still be some element of brave. I hope we don't have to rebrand our whole organization, but because I like our brand. But I think that just normalizing the conversation, I think that's what I'm getting at when I'm saying that one day we'll just call it talking. I mean, when you think of, in one of my versions of my talks, I talk about being at a coffee shop with a couple of your friends, and like the one friend might have the flu, and the one friend has an arm in a cast, and the other friend has diabetes monitor they set on the table, and the other friend lost their hair to cancer. And then the 5th person sitting at the table is sitting there suffering in silence with severe depression and suicidal thoughts, because it's an invisible illness for the most part. Why can't we make it visible, and why can't we talk about it openly? And I think we should be able to celebrate it. We should be able to celebrate recovery. I am so proud of all of the people that I know in recovery that work hard at the recovery every day. And I know how hard that is. And I think that what our shows do is really celebrate that and show that you can tell your story in different ways, because it's very creative. And you're going to get to see some of our creative storytellers too. So.
And speaking of those creative storytellers, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you all recruit folks to share their stories and what the process looks like, and how you think about the diversity of stories that you all are sharing.
Definitely. So when we first started, I remember my co-founder Anne-Marie said she was a little less, what's the word? Confident. We were going to get the storytellers we wanted, but I said, let's just trust this. Let's just do it. And we put it out there, and the people that came forward were just so talented. And that's what happens every time. We go to a new city, we're going to do a show. We have a volunteer producer who offers their time to bring it to that city, and they put the call out for storytellers. And we put it on our social media. They put it in their community. And we say, we want to hear your stories. And then they do 2 days of auditions. We have to call it auditions because every story is important, don't get me wrong. It's that we have a limited amount of time with the show, and we need people to be completely prepared with a piece that they've really thought through and that they've really kind of polished. So they come and they tell their stories, and then we select a cast of about 14 or 15, give or take, and those stories are selected. Again, every story that comes forward is important, but we select those stories based on that diversity, the diversity of backgrounds that people come to us with, and the diversity of types of stories. So we can't have a show that's all about depression, because that's not the true picture of mental health in our world. There's PTSD, there's OCD, there's trichotillomania, there's eating disorders, there's so much, you know. So we want to really tell so many different stories so that when you come to one of our shows, you are getting a picture of what's going on in communities everywhere.
As we prepare to hear from our two storytellers, what advice would you give to us about how to listen?
To listen to these guys is such a, it's a privilege to hear these stories. And so I ask that you keep your hearts open and focus on the words, focus on the lyrics of the song, focus on the verses of the poem, and just let yourself feel what they've felt. And I don't know, I just feel like if you can focus and listen with intention, you're in for a treat. You're going to get a lot out of it.